The year's 2018. I had a painful epiphany and decided I needed to go to Mongolia. I coordinated with a couple friends, learned Cyrillic, and learned a few common phrases in Mongolian. First stop was Ulaanbaatar, and then later we would make our way to Hovsgol Lake to attend a Naadam, to go on an equa trek, and to partake in Mongolian wrestling. Fascinating large country with a small population of about 3 million, half of whom live in the urbanized capital, Ulaanbaatar, the other half more or less traditional out in the countryside, which is where we were headed. To get to Lake Hovsgol, we had to take a flight to Murun and then overnight ride to Hovsgol. We stayed at MS Homestay for a little bit, and interestingly, one of the sisters there is actually married to a Taiwanese man, so we kind of talked about that, which was kind of dope. A nice little village right on the Lake Hovsgol, which is sort of like the little sister of Lake Baikal, the famous one in Russia. The rock piling is an obo, and it's a nexus of spiritual energy. Many Mongolians are still shamanistic. And the placid lake atmosphere was interrupted by a little dance party held by the Mongolian Navy on their tour. Linked up with our guides Urjin and Ganbatar, and we were off through the Hordal Saradak Mountains to Ranchinhlum. Unfortunately, there was a metal piece sticking out of the saddle, and the horse bucked the moment I was getting on it, and so it scraped my ass. So that haunted me for the rest of the trip. It hurt, but it was still a good time. Mongolia truly has beautiful landscapes, and I've only seen a fraction of it. This place has spiritual and practical significance. Herders will come here with their flocks when the weather is particularly bad. We're all buddy-buddy now. The trip's been good so far, and we're entering the Darkhat Valley, coming out of the mountains. Found a nice fly mosquito-infested place to make camp, and they started teaching me some Mongol Bökh, Mongol wrestling. Now keep in mind that at this stage of my journey, I was still kind of new to stand-up grappling. I'd done some Mantis boxing, of course, and some Muay Thai, and some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I was not used to a very high level of throw-based wrestling, so this was amazing for me. Obviously, my homies in the background laughing and giggling, but I'm having the time of my life, feeling for the first time, okay, what is Mongolian wrestling? Ooh, and their Gana, or Ganbatar, is about to use the is hook in Mongolian. Basically, the consensus was I could hook, but I wasn't really a good wrestler. So they're trying to impart me some knowledge and teach me some moves, but the language barrier made it a bit tough because, you know, I don't really speak Mongol hell, and they don't really speak English. So, well, just had to feel it out. After all, it is wrestling. It's a kinesthetic art. One thing I truly loved about the Mongol culture was playing with wrestling. It's not super competitive, but they're playing, and it's just a lot of fun. After a few days on horseback through the mountains, we arrive at Ranchinhlum. We're here for a Naadam, which is the sports festival, and there's going to be the three manly sports of archery, horse riding, and wrestling. For the long distance horse race, the riders are young boys, and for the winner, it's as much about the horse as it is about the rider. Modern mainstream Mongol archery is sort of a target shooting practice, descended from Qing-era Manchu archery in a way, as you notice by the bow. But as you see, the technique is kind of modern target archery, or at the very least, most of them have lost their tradition. There was an old man telling us he used to do horse archery, but it doesn't seem too common anymore.
Let's go Boston!
Now this cracked me up. There was a
Boston
pair
Red
of kids
Sox.
here. One boy's wearing a New York Yankees hat, the other one's wearing a Boston Red Sox hat. You know me, I'm from New England, so I had to film this.
Oh, come on Boston! Oh, New York wins! Come on Boston!
And you know, they went 1 for 1. I just love the friendly wrestling here. Great way to grow up. All right, now we get to the wrestling portion of the Naadam Bökh. And as you can see, there's a ritual that starts off the competition, and the rules are that there's no time limit, there's no weight limit, there's no age limit, and in Mongol Bökh, only your hands and feet can touch the ground. Everything else is a loss. I do escape that initial leg seize, which is cool, but I got hasty after that, and honestly, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing in jacket wrestling, and I got assassinated. Even though I lost, I think people respected me for trying and coming across the world to experience their culture in the wrestling, and so my nickname in the village became Super Vinny, which is kind of funny. I came to appreciate that Mongolian wrestling is not just an ancient tradition with a lot of techniques. It's not just a highly refined art with all kinds of ways to dominate grips that give them such dominance and adaptability. It's also a spirit of a people. It's also shamanism. It's also a way to bond with your fellow man. It's also a way up in life. It's also a core value of a culture. And this has led me to have some very strong beliefs since 2018 that stand-up wrestling is the core of many of these traditional martial arts, that a vibrant, self-sustaining culture is far more important than a dogmatic, pure lineage, and that embedding deep values into your martial practice and embedding your martial practice into your lifestyle is just a must. Y'all remember what I said about no weight classes? Yeah, the little guy actually made it pretty far in the competition, but eventually got.
Hey! Oh!
Good times. We had some lamb and got to see the famous Mongol bloodless butchery, And Hangrit, this little kid, he was so annoying at first, but we ended up really liking him. He's probably forgotten about us by now. But anyways, we went home via this old rickety Russian van through the mountains in the night, and it breaks down within sight of Murran. Like the wheel popped off this motherfucker right as we could see the village. Anyways, we fixed it up and we went on our way. And so this 2 weeks went by real quick, and I wish I'd stayed longer.
I returned to the USA and brought my experiences back to Mantis boxing. And I began reaching out to people in the Shuaijiao community, Shuaijiao being closely related to Mongol Bökh, and connected with people like Lavelle Marshall, 5-time world champion at Shuaijiao, who is now in Inner Mongolia of China studying Bökh. I connected with Matt Gelfand in New York City, with Vlad Kulikov, Sambo Fusion in New Jersey, and met a bunch of Shuaijiao brothers through this whole experience. I committed myself to moving to Taiwan, to Pingdong, to learn Kuaijiao here, and it's been hell of an experience so far. And so you see, this trip in Mongolia really hardened my conviction that I belonged in an environment where I could train my martial arts to a high degree, where my journey could be used to empower others, and where I could wander the land telling its stories that come out of the intersection of nature and culture. It's been a beautiful life so far, and it's just getting started. As such, I consider Mongolia 2018 to be the birth of the Wandering Warrior. So thank you for following me on my journey. I salute yours. Peace.